kind of a hot topic of a story where Eric Bieniemy has been the subject of a lot of slanderous kind of talk. Earlier on the offseason, we talked about this article that was written about him that had attributed to players, but then it got taken off online because it didn't have proper attribution. It was kind of making charges out there that really had no place of anything. But LeSean McCoy, former running back for the Chiefs, went on I Am Athlete podcast, talked about a bunch of things. It's a pretty interesting episode. But in the episode, he ended up skewering our guy, EB. He was quoted saying, there's a reason why every year they hype him up to get a job. And then when the time comes, nobody hires him because they know the type of coach he really is. Shady went on to say that Eric Bieniemy is the reason why he stopped playing in Kansas City. If everyone knows, Shady, he was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. It's kind of what happened with him towards the end of it.
Me and the coordinator, we had a difference about different things, right? And I'm going to say this. It's the reason why every year they keep hyping him up to get a coaching job, a head coach or office coordinator job for somewhere else, and you don't get one because
he's talking about Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, and the players.
You're bringing this up now when we got a minute to
I'm
show
like,
them.
truth. Listen, because some players, right, he talks to them a certain way, and some players would take it. I wouldn't take it. Like, whoa, and some question I would ask, everybody's accountable.
Yeah.
That's why it's not because he's a black coach. That's not the reason. The reason that because I won't get into that, but I'll say this.
You can't say the reason.
We ain't got enough time to get into it.
We got 1 minute, but it's the reason why that every year they hype him up to get a job, and then when the time comes, nobody hires him because they know what type of coach he really is.
So you're saying Eric Bieniemy was the reason why you stopped playing in Kansas City?
Yeah, come on, man. That's players. They knew what it was.
The guys in the media in Kansas City asked Andy Reid, and Andy Reid was had EB's back. He was quoted saying, sometimes it's hard on a veteran player. Maybe the performance level isn't what it used to be, and it's hard to take sometimes. But EB is going to push you to try to maximize what you've got. That is one of his strengths. He'll come in and shoot you straight. Sometimes you want to hear it. Sometimes you don't. And also Travis Kelce also had Eric Bieniemy's back on that entirety of what McCoy had to say. So, Jason, you had a lot to say about that article that came out about EB in the offseason. Now, I'm curious about what you had to say about LeSean's take on Coach EB.
I tell you what, man. Sound like Shady being a little shady. That's what it sounded like. Just maybe a tinge, maybe just a tinge. But no, man, look, and the thing is, I watched that episode, got a little bit of it, like I Am Athlete, when they was talking about, and he was making a point, it was kind of a good point, and I get the part what he was saying, where, sometimes when you're an older veteran player and that you feel like you still have something in the tank to give, then the worst thing you could possibly do is have somebody diminish what you may be able to contribute on the field, right? And so I think he felt slighted by that. I think he meant like, EB was probably telling him like, look, man, listen, hey, you talking about you Shady McCoy just came out here from Philadelphia, with the Eagles with Andy. Look, we know how you're supposed to work. We know what you're supposed to do. So, hey, you need to get to it. That's the guy we're looking for. And look, and as a veteran guy, later on down, the road, one of the things that you don't want to hear is you probably don't have the same ability as you used to have a few years ago. And they're moving new guys in at your position, and they're giving those guys the reps. Because sometimes, man, you feel like you earned it. You earned your stripes. You really do. But it's when you feel like you had to prove yourself over and over again, yeah, you know what? You're going to be a little hurt. Hey, it happens to all of us. If you play for a long time in this league, but which I was blessed to do, every single year, guys are coming in to try to replace you, try to do this and do that, right? And so if you're absolutely confident in your abilities, then you don't think a guy behind you is going to be able to beat you out. But sometimes when they bring a guy in, because the business is the business, they get a younger guy, doesn't cost a lot of money. If he's got the same amount of ability you got, they're going to push this guy because he's going to be the future. And I think, Shady was just saying that, Bieniemy was like, oh man, you know what? I didn't like that flavor he was kind of giving me. So until what they ended up doing, Shady's sitting there saying, now let me just go ahead and throw a little shade his way, talking about, well, that's why teams don't like him, this and that. I also saw an interview where Shady was talking about how good of a coach he was, right? So what are we supposed to believe? That's what I look at. What are we supposed to believe? Are we supposed to believe this guy part of it, or is it supposed to believe this part of this guy, right? Because you got two stories here. So which one is it, right? Which one are you telling me, or which one is it like just the the pageant, answer, right? Oh, it's the pageant answer. I'm supposed to say those things about it. But reality is this, man. Every coach is not going to be every player's cup of tea. Okay, that's the reality of it. Some coaches are hard. Bieniemy, a guy who has played the game, he's going to cut it to you straight. He is. That's the bottom line. And Reed was saying the same thing. Like, look, you know what? He's telling you it's me. Probably rubbed him the wrong way. He don't like it, but EB's going to be straight with it because he didn't play the game. He knows. Mm-hmm. So we're going to play the game. Let's be real with each other. I mean, it's like player with player. Guy that's been there before. He knows what it's all about. So I think that's what it was, man. I think it's part of the deal. Just being a little shady. Just to throw a little bit, little hate right there in the water. That's all.
I guess I was kind of surprised, because usually this kind of stuff comes from like the younger players, the ones who haven't seen it all yet. So like they come out and they'll trash a coach. They go to a new team, they'll trash a coach, right? Or they'll trash the situation they're in. But not a guy who's Shady in his mid-30s now. He's an older guy. He's been played for more than 10 years. You would think you kind of know that your words, there's an effect that your words will have. And you say stuff like this, it's not going to look good. It's going to make you look bad. But also with this whole looming story, all these BS stories that are coming out about Eric Bieniemy, none of that can be verified or attributed. Right. But then on top of that, you're hearing a former player say that. Then it goes and it's like, well, then maybe other teams maybe even saying, whatever. I mean, teams are vetting this stuff, but they hear this guy McCoy say that could be sour grapes. But then also you have these articles that are coming from somewhere. Maybe some of the aspects of it are true, and then people start questioning. Is Bieniemy is he a bad coach? I mean, do players not like playing for him? I just don't. It's not fair for Bieniemy when it goes to the coaching searches that these stories are out there.
Well, I'll say this. I don't know if it's fair to him or not. I mean, I know that's shady. That's his opinion on it. That's how he felt about it, and so I can't really take away from how he felt about a situation. Only thing I hate that I dislike about it is when you're doing this, what you're doing also too is you're minimizing maybe some of the things that why Bieniemy is not being hired for, right? That these things that may still exist, or why he's not becoming a head coach. Because look, I'm gonna tell you this: Bieniemy's a good enough coach to be a head coach in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. Bottom line, if he wasn't, he wouldn't be taking interviews at all. That's the way I look at it. Right. And so whatever reason why they're not hiring him, or why he's going through the interview process and this and that, or why they don't like him, there are plenty of coaches that maybe in the past there's grumblings about this and that that are hired, that got jobs. That Bieniemy is more qualified and better at being a head coach than they would be, in my assessment. That's how I look at it, right? And so, look, his opinion about it, fine. I think like this. You need a hard coach who's got an edge about him, who's going to tell you the truth. And so Bieniemy is cut from that cloth. He's had coaches like that in the past. He's part of like that at old school where you getting part of like that culture of like, hey, man, we're going to tell you straight up. Yeah, we can do without you. And so what ends up happening is because it's almost like oil and water, right? Because then all of a sudden you got a head coach that has, a little heat to him, has a disciplinarian is going to tell you the truth, and a guy that may have, an ego because he's done a lot in his career that's not going to mix, right? I'm telling you, it's oil and water, man. So I think that's kind of where it is in the situation. I mean, this is just one interview, but like I said before, Shady also, man, he said it, gave Bieniemy praises. Yep. So I think, man, hey, look, who knows? But I don't think no team or owner should look at this video and say, hey, look, he says this about him. Well, shoot, there's 100 guys that vouch for him and say, man, he's a great coach, right? So I think it's just his opinion, man. Hey, every guy's interaction with certain people ain't gonna be the same. So
right. And he does kind of mention there's one part in it where he kind of like makes it seem like other people have the same opinion on him because he says like, oh, he treats different players differently. And that's one thing I don't like. And that's the thing I have problems personally with people when they have issue with you But then they act like it's like, oh, I'm not the only one who thinks this. Other people think this too about you. It's like, oh, well, I'll let them say it. But like, you can't speak for other people when talking. If you have a problem with someone, don't try to speak for other people in that. And I especially when you're going on public airwaves to say these things.
Well, you're right. You're right. Like I said, it's, treating people with amount of grace. But I will say this. Look, there's coaches out there that others felt like was great coaches. And I'm just like, look, I ain't really particularly like that guy like that. Or I didn't like his style of coaching or whatever it was. Like, hey, I get it. That might have been cool with you. And other guys not the same. And same here, where I said, like, this guy was a great coach. And it was like, oh, man, you really thought he was? Yeah, man. Like, yeah, he motivated me. What he was saying, how he was speaking in meetings, all the things he talked about resonated with me. Mm-hmm. So, it's just differences of opinions of different coaches, man. Hey, so be it.
To each their own.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get podcasts.